Okay, we are holding Daf. Today's Daf is Daf Kuf, and we are holding about 5 lines from the bottom of Daf Tzadik Tes Amud Sheni. Basically, I just wanted to review the Mishnah. The Mishnah discussed yesterday regarding Erev Pesach that a person should not eat until it gets dark. That was the first Mishnah. So the Gemara asked the question is what's so unique about Erev Pesach a person shouldn't eat? Erev Pesach a person shouldn't eat because he should eat the matzah with great appetite, okay? Unlike a Pesach program where they fill you up even Erev Pesach is the Shulchan Aruch paskins a person's not allowed to eat. So what's unique about Erev Pesach, even on Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov, you're not allowed to eat. Because that's what the Gemara says. A person's not allowed to eat an Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov from Mincha Ulamala, from the beginning of Mincha and onward, so that he can go into Shabbos with a appetite. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says, "Oichel v'hoylech ad shetechshach." A person's permitted to eat until it gets dark. So, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no unique chiddush, there's no unique idea in the Mishnah that on Erev Pesach a person's not allowed to eat. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna's answer is, again, it's not, the whole Mishnah is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. Although Rabbi Yossi holds that on Erev Shabbos you could eat until it's dark, and Erev Pesach, he agrees because of the chiyuv of matzah, the obligation to eat matzah, even Rabbi Yossi, who's normally lenient on Erev Shabbos, he's strict on Erev Pesach. That is the opinion of Rav Huna. Hi, Sheldon.
Hi, Bernard. How are you?
Good. We just began. We just reviewed the Mishnah. I don't know if you
Okay.
So I'm just going to say one sentence again. If the Mishnah discusses Erev Pesach, a person should not eat until it gets dark. So you should eat matzah with an appetite. And then the Gemara says that the Gemara asks the question, what's so unique? Let's read the Gemara again. It's going to go very fast. Erev Pesach, a person should not eat until it gets dark. I will point out to you, the point of the Mishnah is that a person should be able to eat the matzah l'teyavon. Tosfos points out a very unique question. What do you mean? A person's is gonna fill himself up in Erev Pesach and not leave anything over? We learned that in the middle of the Pesach Seder, a person could fill himself up with b'tzeika shel goyim, with non-kosher matzah, as long as you make sure to eat a kazayis matzah b'achroina. And here we're telling you that you're not allowed to eat even Erev Pesach. Even during the Seder itself, if you could fill yourself up with other things and make sure you leave up enough room for the kazayis matzah. So why are you telling people not to eat on Erev Pesach? Because he gets so stuffed and he's not going to eat the matzah. So Tosfos says the answer is in that meal itself, a person's careful and doesn't eat his entire fullness, his entire satiation. He'll be careful not to leave over a little bit, so he'll be able to eat the matzah with a hearty appetite. But on Erev Pesach, a person will miscalculate, and he's not so careful, and he'll fill himself up on Erev Pesach. By the time he gets to the Seder, he can't even look at matzah anymore, and therefore we restrict him not to eat on Erev Pesach until it gets dark. So let's begin the Gemara and we'll run through it. The Gemara asks, you're telling me on Erev Pesach you're not allowed to eat till it gets dark? What is so unique about Erev Pesach? On Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov, you're also not allowed to eat. And the Rashbam explains that, and this is a Talmud of Rashi, but Rashi says the same thing. Mishum, a person should not eat it because you should come and have a hearty meal on Shabbos, on Friday night. Don't fill yourself up on Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So the Erev Pesach is not unique according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says, a person could continue to eat until dark. On Erev Shabbos and on Erev Yom Tov, a person could eat until dark, and that's not a problem. So according to the question is, if our mission is according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no uniqueness on Erev Pesach. Amar Rav Huna explained, Loi, not so tzricha el Rabbi Yossi. The Amar. Rabbi Yossi, who normally says, that was only said, Ba'arvei Shabbos v'yamim tovim. Only on Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov, then what do we say? Rabbi Yossi says you could eat until mamish nightfall and then go to Barav and then come home and eat your meal. That's on Erev Shabbos. Yossi has no strictness on Erev Shabbos. Avo be'erev Pesach, and Erev Pesach, mishum chiyuv de matzah, because of the obligation of matzah, moida, Rabbi Yossi would agree that you're not supposed to eat Erev Pesach because you have to eat the mitzvah of matzah, which is the raisa l'tei avon. And that's to eat it l'tei avon is a hider mitzvah, that you're looking forward to be mekayim this mitzvah. See, unlike any other mitzvah that you do, you don't have that innate desire to do the mitzvah. You're just pushing yourself to do the mitzvah. But if you come hungry to that Pesach Seder and you take that bite of that matzah and that you didn't have it for a month or since last year, there's a hidur mitzvah in that. Rav Papa says, no. He says, our Mishnah afila teiv Rabbi Yehuda. Even it can go according to Rabbi Yehuda. So what's so unique? Our Erev Pesach, then Erev Shabbos. Hasam by Erev Shabbos, Yom Tovim, Mina Mincha L'Malahu Dasa. From Mincha, we'll call that 3:30 and onwards. 3:30 and onwards, it's usher to eat on Erev Shabbos. But Samach L'Mincha, very close to Mincha, which is 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're permitted to eat. And we're talking about Mincha Ketana over here. Avo be'erev Pesach, and Erev Pesach, that even at Erev Pesach, even close to Mincha, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon already, it would be Asar. And that's what our Mishnah says. Erev Pesach samach lemincha, close to Mincha, like a half hour before Mincha already, you're not allowed to eat any food. And I want to point out to you, it doesn't mean that you can't eat on Erev Pesach at all. We learned that Shulchan Aruch says right over here that it's Asar, the ikar point of the Mishnah is that it's Asar lechol pas. That means you're not allowed to eat, right over here, you're not allowed to eat pas, which is type of matzah ashira, matzah baked with fruit juice, which is you're not using it for the Pesach Seder because it's made out of fruit juice, but it's called matzah ashira. So normally, according to the Shulchan Aruch, you would be allowed to eat it. On Erev Pesach, you shouldn't eat it. Mishah asiris l'mala k'dei sheyechel matzah te'avoin. But you should know, ava oichel ma'at peiros, you eat fruit or your rakos or vegetables. Ava lo yamale kreis mem, don't fill your stomach with even the fruits and vegetables you can eat until nightfall. Okay, so now the Gemara asks a question. The Erev Shabbos, so you just said, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that on Erev Shabbos, only from Mincha and onwards, from 3:30 and onwards, you're not allowed to eat. But from 3 o'clock and onwards, you are permitted to eat. Just so the Gemara asks, Uve Erev Shabbos, Samach LeMincha Shari, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, on Erev Shabbos, close, a half hour before Mincha, is it still permitted? Well, Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, and listen closely to the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Lo yoichel adam be'erev Shabbos v'yom tov, miteisha shoy sulamala, from 9 hours and beyond. That means if 6 o'clock in the morning is sunrise, 9 hours is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And Mincha Ketana is 3:30. And Rabbi Yehuda says, from 9 hours, from 3 o'clock, you're not allowed to eat, even on Erev Shabbos. Kidei she'yikonos l'Shabbos kishu taiva. So you should go into Shabbos with a hunger. So here, you can't say that there's a difference between Erev Shabbos and Erev Pesach of Samach L'Mincha, because even Samach L'Mincha, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is Erev Shabbos is Asa. So the Gemara asks, who told you that is a brisa that is correct? In other words, maybe that was a Vilma, maybe Mishabeshtihi, maybe that brisa that you just quoted has full of mistakes. You see, everything was done by memory. And it could be that brisa was supposed to say Teshoy Sumechza. How do you know it's 100% accurate brisa? So that you could ask a question. Amalei Merema, V'Tem Rabbi Yemer, Some say Merema said this, and some say Rav Yemer said it. Again, this is also not accurate. Who said it? But he's trying to say that brisa was accurate, because he said, "Ano iklai lepirkei Rav Pinchas brei Rabami." I went to the lecture of Rav Pinchas, the son of Rabami. V'kom Tana v'Tana Kamei, and a Tana got up before him and repeated this brisa, and v'kibla minei, and Rav Pinchas said, accepted it, and he accepted it by indicating that this is a true brisa. So if it's a true brisa, this brisa says that even on Erev Shabbos at 3:00, you're not allowed to eat. That's similar to Pesach. So that can't be the answer. That cannot be the answer of what's the difference between Erev Pesach and Erev Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Yihachi Kashya. You're back to the same difficulty as what's so unique about Erev Pesach. The only answer you'll have over here is that our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yossi. And the chiddush of our Mishnah is that although Rabbi Yossi holds on regular Erev Shabbos, you can eat until nightfall, on Erev Pesach, Rabbi Yossi goes strict and says you can only eat until mincha time. So the Gemara now challenges that. So according to what you're saying, that Rabbi Yossi would agree to Rabbi Yehuda on Erev Pesach that at 3:00 you're not allowed to eat anymore. So Rabbi Yehuda midika is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is that correct? That Rabbi Yossi would not argue on Rabbi Yehuda by Erev Pesach. Rabbi Yirmiyah said in the name of Rabbi Yossi, he said, look at this statement. Halachak Rabbi Yehuda be'erev Pesach. We paskin like Rabbi Yehuda on Erev Pesach. Oh, halachak Rabbi Yossi be'erev Shabbos, and we paskin like Rabbi Yossi in Erev Shabbos. So what we're trying to say is on Erev Shabbos we say that you can eat until it's dark. On Erev Pesach we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda that you have to stop eating by mincha time, samach lemincha. So halachak Rabbi Yehuda be'erev Pesach, halachak Rabbi Yehuda be'erev Pesach miklal. From this we can derive the polig Rabbi Yossi b'tarvayu. Rabbi Yossi disagrees by both. Not only by, he would still argue by Erev Pesach that you're not allowed to eat. So you cannot, Rav Tuda's teretz is not a good teretz, because you can't say our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yossi, because even according to Rabbi Yossi, the way it's phrased over here, it would seem that Rabbi Yossi would hold that even by Erev Pesach, you can eat until it's dark. So the answer is no. That halacha Rabbi Yehuda Erev Pesach is talking about a totally different thing. That is talking about interrupting a meal. You see, what we're discussing over here is to begin a meal after mincha time. That is the argument. And even on Erev Pesach, Rabbi Yossi would be moida that you're not allowed to begin the meal after mincha. But halacha, when we're saying the halacha is mechlal the pligi, is bahafsaka. That statement was talking about a totally different argument regarding interrupting a meal. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Mafsikin l'shabbosos. When you're starting a meal, you're allowed to be. You have to be mafsik for shabbosos. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. What does this mean? Mafsikin l'shabbosos. That means suppose you started the meal. You started an Erev Shabbos a meal like we started by Purim time, by 12:00, and your meal lasted until Friday night. So then you have to make kiddush. So first you should bench. Basically, what Rabbi Yehuda is going to hold, you bench, you take away the table, you clean off the table, and then you bring back the table with new food, and you make kiddush and you wash again. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. You have to totally stop. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says, "Ein mafsikim." You don't interrupt your meal. Now, what does that mean? You don't interrupt your meal. You have to make kiddush. It's Friday night. So what he would hold is Rabbi Yossi holds you continue eating your meal, bench, and then make kiddush. You're going to ask me, what do you mean? I'm benching and then making kiddush according to Rabbi Yossi? Ain't kiddush only in b'makam su'uda. Yeah, right. The meal that you just ate would be counted as the meal of Shabbos, and you're just making kiddush after the meal. So this is a mafsikin question. Should you interrupt your meal? Now the Gemara says, Umaise Rab Shimon Megamliel, Rab Yehuda, Rab Yossi, all these people show you mesubim ba'akoy. They were in a meal in Akoy. there's a place, I don't know if you have, it's very, I think in the very north of Israel. It's a very old place. It's a port city. It's even from the time before Avram Avinu, thousands of years old. So these people, I don't know, it was Friday afternoon, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, they're having a meal. They didn't go to shul. They was talking Torah, and all of a sudden they turned around and they started their lunch Friday afternoon, and it's Friday night. So what do? According to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to bench, pull away the meal, and reset the table. So Amalei Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who was like leading the table, he said to Rabbi Yossi, the Rebbe, a master or great person. Rabbi Yossi Bechlafta was a great person. Would you mind, so to speak, and let's interrupt the meal? And we should be concerned. There's nothing wrong. We'll be machmir and do like what Rabbi Yehuda says. Let's just bench, pull away the table, come back, bring kiddush, and wash again. So that was Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, and Rabbi Yossi would normally agree to that. There's nothing wrong with that. He just says you don't have to do that. But then this time, Rabbi Yossi said, I don't want you to do that. Rabbi Yossi said, and every single day, you praise my opinion in front of Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, the halacha is always like Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta because he was very, very sharp in his learning. And now to show respect and love for the words of Rabbi Yehuda in front of me. In other words, Hagam lichpaishesamalka ime babayis. Will you take advantage of the queen with me in the house? And this is eerie. It's uncanny how yesterday it was just Purim, and this is a phrase from the Megillah where Achashverosh tells Haman, who's now fell onto Esther's bed, and says, "Are you going to take and take advantage of the queen? I'm right here in the house." And this is the phrase that he used. Are you going to paskin like Rabbi Yehuda while I'm here? Amalei. So Rabbi Shimon says, you're right. In Cain, you're right. Loy nafsik. We're not going to interrupt. Shem yira hatalmidim yikbu halacha l'doros. Maybe the talmidim will see, and they'll say the halacha for generations. They'll say over the story that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. You always have to. There's no such a thing. But that really the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Amru, Chamim said, Loizazu misham. They did not move from that table till they established the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. That is, that if someone started a meal in the time of Heter, Friday lunchtime, and the meal extended all the way till Friday night, he doesn't have to interrupt his meal. He can continue eating with the meal and dessert and whatever, benches, and then makes kiddush. But the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Shmuel that he doesn't like the halacha. Ein halacha like Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yossi. We don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda or not like Rabbi Yossi. Ella, what you need to do? Peiris mapa makadosh. Really, you should spread a challah cover over it and do kiddush. In other words, we don't do like Rabbi Yehuda and be strict and say bench and then take away the table and start again. And we don't be lenient like Rabbi Yossi that you could continue eating until later on in the evening. But no, you interrupt halfway. It's a hybrid. You interrupt, you stop eating when it's dark outside, and you put a challah cover over the bread, and you make kiddush. And then you go back to eating, and that should be enough. So the Gemara says, and we're going to learn why do you do Paris Mapa Makadish. It's not so much the reasons that you know are not the reasons that are brought in the Rishonim. We'll see that on Amud Beis. Eini, says the Gemara, is that true? That the halacha is like that what Shmuel says, that you do Paris Mapa Makadish. Shmuel said, Kishem shemafsikin lekiddush, kach mafsikin lahavdalah. That if people were around eating shalosh shudas, they have to interrupt their eating and make havdalah. And same thing, if you were eating and it's turned out to be Friday night, you should interrupt your eating and make kiddush. What does it mean, mafsikin? We're on Amud Beis. My mafsikin. What does it mean to interrupt your meal? Lav lakiris shulchan. That you have to remove the table. That means, like Rabbi Yehuda, that you have to just stop eating, take away the table, and then make kiddush. So the Gemara says, no, you don't have to say that was what Shmuel meant. Lemapa, he meant that you're mafsik by putting a challah cover on the over the challah, and that's enough. So that's the way we paskin. Rabba, but the Gemara says, Rabba bar Huna ikle lebeiresh galusa. Rabba bar Huna, this has nothing to do with the Gemara we learned before right now. This Gemara right now is talking about on a regular Shabbos, right? Not because of eating, not because they were started the meal Friday afternoon. It's just plain Shabbos. They came home from shul, right? Rabba Rav Huna ikle lebeiresh galusa. Rabba Rav Huna came to the house for Reish Galusa for a Friday night meal. I see Taka Kamei. They brought the table in front of him. Paras Mapa Umakadesh. They brought the Paras Mapa Umakadesh. And then he covered it. He covered the challah with a cloth, and then make the kiddush. Because Tanya Nami Hochi. Because why did he do that? Because really, you're not supposed to bring the table. They used to have. They would sit around on chairs. And then they would bring the table with food to them when they wanted to start the meal. So the Brisa says, "She'ein mevina shulchan elam ken kiddush." You don't bring the table with the steaming hot meal. Only first you make kiddush. V'im hevi, if you did bring it, paris mapo makadesh. You put a cover on it and you make kiddush. Because the reason why you cover the challah, and really you should cover the whole table, is because it's a presentation factor, that you're showing that this food is being brought in honor of the kiddush. It's like lahavdil. If when you ever go to a car launch or a electronic launch, first you see the product that's underneath the cloth, and you discuss the product, and you say what we're about to show you is something very, very special, and then they pull the cloth off, and that is a presentation, a cover for the product that you're trying to market. So same thing, lahavdil. This is what's going on over here. That you have the kiddush, you're covering up the food so that when you finally bring it out, you pull it off. That's what we say over here. That's one reason. I just want to point into Taisus. Taisus asks a question, famous question that we learned in Masechta Shabbos, that when you come home Friday night, the malach, the good malach, if he sees that your table is set, he gives you a bracha. So, but now you're telling me that he should be coming home and should not see any table there at all. So the answer is, that's simple. The malach goes into your kitchen to where the table is set, and you didn't bring it into the dining room yet, and that's where he makes the bracha. So he just you go into the dining room, presumably in the time of Chazal, there was no table there. And then the malach detours into your kitchen to see that you have food prepared, and that's when he gives you the bracha. But here's the point. We have huge dining room tables. It's very difficult for us to bring it after Kiddush, so that we shouldn't make a hefset between Kiddush and the meal. So therefore, we always cover the challah with the make Kiddush. Then this explanation is in the Shiltis of Rabbi Chai. Then Taisa says another reason. There is one more reason. The man did not go on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and there was dew on top and dew on the bottom. So therefore, and the man was in between. That's why we have a plate underneath, the challah in between, and then a cover on top. So then we should have a remembrance that the man did not fall; it fell double on Friday, so we can celebrate Shabbos. So two reasons Tosfos gives, and based on the Gemara of why we pyrus mappa on a normal Shabbos, you cover the bread and you make kiddush. There's one third reason that we say is, as you know, that in the Chumash, it's in the halacha, it says that a person should not, when in the order of brachas, you should make a hamotzi first and then make a hagafen, because in the Chumash it says chita before gefen. So in the order of brachas, technically a person should make bezoinus and ala gefen and bezoinus hamoitzi before bar pri hagafen. And in fact, when you make a al hagefem and you have an al michya, you say al michya val kakola val gefen val pri hagafen. So bezoinus bezoinus and hamoitzi precedes bar pri hagafen. And here you're making the bar pri hagafen first. So we're accustomed to say that in the Kabbalah reason is that if you do that, the bread is going to be embarrassed. And therefore, we cover the bread in order that the bread should not be embarrassed. I challenge you now, and where in Chumash do we say, this is an inanimate object. Where do we say in the Chumash, we say this idea of not to insult an inanimate object? Who didn't insult an inanimate object?
Rock.
What?
Oh, the rock with the water coming forth.
Right, or the dam by the Mount Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was not allowed to hit the water because it, it was not, or the ground. He was not allowed to hit. Very good. That's what I was thinking of. And what were you saying about the mizbeach?
That's the lo salem al lo sal mizbechi, not to embarrass the inanimate.
Right, not to embarrass. So
there was that woman that during the Churban, I think she was Jewish, but she was married. She called the mizbeach like drink up all the blood and eat up all the animals. She insulted and she was punished for generations. I forgot what her name was.
Right.
She called it a name.
Wasn't
like
Mark? Locus.
Right.
I must say, Mamon shel Yisrael.
How much more? Like whatever you write.
So I always thought to myself that it's not the pshat that an inanimate object has really no feelings, but it's a training of yourself that if you're like if you throw inanimate objects or you're disgraceful to objects, you don't show feelings or pressure, specialness to it. I guess that brings out a bad midah in you.
Our daughter was learning that this year. I think the Michtam Elio has that. You mechaben to Rav Diskin, the Michtam Elio on that same point. It's to train the midah of the person,
right?
Not to be embarrassed others.
My kids make fun of me when I buy a new book, a sefer or something. I open it up and almost smell the pages, because when I got a book, a sefer or a present or something like that, there was a chashivas to it. I felt the author writing it, and I still do it. But that's a different story. All right. The Gemara just finishes off 1 more minute. Tani Chada, we learned in Ran Brisa. We're back to the Shavin. Both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi will agree she'ein maschilin, that you're not allowed to start the meal. You're not allowed to start a brand new meal. That's one Brisa. The Tanya Yidach and another Brisa, Shavin, that both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi would agree shemaschilin, that you're permitted to start. Wait a second. Bishlama, the Brisa that says Hadatanya Shavin, they both would agree she'ein maschilin, that you're not allowed to start the meal. Mishkachad, that's possible, but Erev HaPesach. And Erev Pesach, as we explained with Rav Huna's teretz, that even Rabbi Yossi, who normally is strict that you're not allowed to start the meal, he would hold by Erev Pesach, you cannot start after Mincha time, or even Samach LeMincha, a meal. So that's Shavin She'ein Maschilin. El Tanya, that we learned in the Brisa Shavin, that both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi would agree, Shemaschilim, that you're allowed to start. Emas, what can that possibly be? Nema be'erev Shabbos. Would you say it's by erev Shabbos? Homiflik palik. They're arguing. Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot, and Rabbi Yossi was the one that holds you could. So what does this brisa mean? That both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi have a time period that you could start a meal on erev something. Like kasha, it's not difficult. Kan koidim tisha, kan acha tisha. That before the 9th hour, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree you could start. Even if it's 10 minutes before the 9th hour, means 2:45, you're allowed to start the meal. It's only starting after 3 o'clock, Rabbi Yehuda becomes strict on Erev Shabbos. So before Tisha on Erev Shabbos, so then before the 9th hour, they all agree you can start a meal. But Kan La'achat Tisha, after the 9th hour, already on Erev Pesach, they both agree you cannot start. So it's both talking about Erev Pesach. One's talking about before the 9th hour. One's talking about after the 9th hour. And this is where we'll stop. We'll continue on Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. 3 lines in the bottom. Okay?
Thank you.
The dafim are short over here, as I explained to you yesterday, that Rashi wrote his Pirush over here. On the first, we only have the first version of Rashi over here. He went through 3 editions before he wrote the complete Rashi. And for some reason, in Arvei Pesachim, we only had the first edition. It's almost like the Steinsaltz. If you know the Steinsaltz Gemaras, he wrote very brief because he wanted you to look into Rashi and then use his Pirush as a supplement. Unlike, let's say, Art Scroll or the others, that you could almost skip the Rashi and just do their Pirush. So this Rashi that we have is Rashi, but it's very, very brief. So his Talmud filled in an edited version of the Rashi, but it's so verbose. He puts in a lot. He puts in a lot of the questions that Tosfos asks, and that's why the dafim becomes smaller. So because nobody had that precise quality of Rashi to write the precise brief, but just enough so that you could really feel that you're doing it deeply. So that's why these dafim are very short, but it's nice. Okay? Very good, everybody. Mitzvah Shem tomorrow, 8:30 again.
Yes, you could.
Good Nacht.
No.